Before I start, I also want to mention we are talking about Canada in the 1920s. Most of this is written. Mid 1930s is when kind of the drafts come through. It's not the same Canada that we're thinking of today. There's a lot of things that aren't even constructed. For example, the Highway 40 is not finished during most of this. So if you were reading the manual, you would notice they're actually talking about how it's kind of being built up. The railway system is almost finished, but there's actually parts that don't connect. There's a lot of stuff. Niagara Falls is completely different, for example. There's a power plant there, which has been gone for quite a while. But yeah, let's start this off by setting the table. Um, After World War One, relations between the United States and Britain were actually not great. Um, this had largely to do with Britain owed a substantial amount of money to the United States because, for those who don't know, the United States ended up banking Britain, France, and Russia by proxy. And Britain owed them like $22 billion. I think they only paid it off in like 2005. That's how long it took. It's a crazy amount. And
And $22 billion back then is
yeah,
insane today.
it's an insane amount. And there was payments with gold and all sorts of crazy things had to happen. A lot of people don't like to talk about this. During World War II, a lot of the deal making between FDR and Churchill had to do with the debt from World War One. There was money kind of being played with there. So yeah, it's a very relevant thing. But the United States was also uneasy because they had emerged as the second dominant global naval power simply because Germany sunk its entire fleet. So you have the Royal Navy, who's been basically the head honcho for forever. And now the
350
American,
years, I'll just tell
yeah,
that.
yeah. And now the American Navy is their second. Not that the American Navy was even close in size or capability to the Royal Navy, but the Royal Navy just had to acknowledge who would be the likeliest threat to them on the naval stage. Yeah, number two would be America, but America wouldn't last in a conflict there for sure.
Quality of seamanship.
Yeah, and it's not just people might look at quantity of ships. The United States had a lot of ships, not a tremendous amount, but the quality was bad. If you looked at the battleships, it's like on paper, maybe you could argue the United States could put up a little bit of a fight, but no, the British battleships or dreadnoughts, basically at this time, would have just wiped them out. Not to mention, like you said, the British were battle-hardened veterans on the seas. It would have been like a cat playing with a mouse. That's how bad it would have
It's
been.
kind of like there's a reason it's the Royal Navy is the senior service.
Yeah, exactly. And the United States fully aware of this. They weren't stupid. Now, during this time
Unlike a
period,
certain, unlike a certain military leader that would emerge in about 15 years.
yeah, that's very true. Now, the United States during this period, actually, it goes even further back. We're talking, honestly, Teddy Roosevelt kind of started the process. The United States developed these, they're called the coded war plans to prepare for potential conflicts with any given nation that might go to war with the United States or cause a situation where they would have to go to war. You can go on Wikipedia, there's a decent list of these war plans. It doesn't go into depth through all of them, so you should do your own research, but it's pretty entertaining. Now, of all of these war plans that we're all going to talk about because they're funny, War Plan Red outlines strategies for a hypothetical war between the United States and Great Britain. So actually, the map that you can see behind me, I guess, on your screen, is for War Plan Red, and I'll explain a little bit about it in a bit. So, in such a conflict, it was thought that it could have been as an escalation. Um, well, here I'll get into that a little bit later. But it was thought that this war plan would inevitably escalate into a continental war, predominantly fought in North America, with the United States facing off against the British Dominion of Canada at the time. This prompted American military strategists to create a plan for invading and bona fide conquering Canada. So we're going to be looking into exactly, what was War Plan Red and the other war plans for that matter, because it's a lot of fun. So during the interwar period, the United States Armed Forces formulated the several color-coded war plans. Um, they were developed early in the mid 20th century. Just to give you an idea, War Plan Orange, which dealt with Japan was immediately done after the Russo-Japanese War, and it was initiated by Teddy Roosevelt because he felt that Japan would potentially be a threat to the United States in the Pacific. But I think it'd be kind of fun to go through some of these war plans, just to give a little flavor to this. So, one of the first war plans was known as War Plan Black. It was a contingency plan for a war with Germany, which should come to no surprise. This is coming off the heels of World War One, who obviously Germany had proven itself to be a formidable force. It's it's formulated directly after World War One, and it was basically just a precaution measure in case France fell to German forces. Because for those who don't know, after World War One, France kind of just was the dominant, like, standing army for quite a while, arguably during
Land
World War
army.
Two. Land army, yes, of course. An
But
amazing infantry, great tanks, no radios. That's all you have to say about them.
and horribly out of date generals.
Yes,
Don't forget that.
unbelievably. I mean, the British too. The British, like some of
They,
the
they were
generals,
better
yeah,
in
but
comparison.
the
I think
French,
this
yeah,
is. I think I know I'm just digressing, but I remember reading this at the time of the Battle of France in 1940. Gert von Rundstedt at I think 62 was literally the oldest general in the Wehrmacht,
yeah,
and most generals, right, at the divisional and above were, you could say, between the ages of 48 to 55. So they're still energetic and
yeah.
driven. Most of the French generals were over 65. That's
I
it.
mean, it was also Victor's disease. Some of these guys made their names at the end of World War One, so they kept them around, but what it was very foolish. And I mean, I don't want to go into it too far, but the French still believed, given what happened in World War One, that the next war was going to be identical and that big, large armies would inevitably come to a standstill for trench warfare, where the Germans took the opposite perspective. They're like, we can never let that happen. We need direct punches into a weakened area in a line, combined arms go through. Don't
Well,
allow that.
well, actually, the funny thing is the movement and tactics which dominated the Blitzkrieg was actually not even a novel concept. It
Yeah,
was something that even the Prussian armies used to do quite well.
of course.
It's just the means changed, but it still was the essence of pincer movement and envelopment in a kettle. Uh, I can't recall Kaiserschlaf, I think it is used to call, like you get them into it's or the cauldron battle, as they used
Yes,
to
yeah,
call
the
it.
quadrant battle, yeah.
So it was still the same thing,
Yeah.
just
But it's also
the
because
means changed.
unlike the British and the French, the Germans fought in the Western Front, but during World War One, they also fought in the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front, it wasn't trench warfare. It was wide open
Open.
space, very mobile. So they got the best of both worlds when it came to experience. And they realized, yeah, what we were doing in the East particularly could be used against the West, and they wouldn't see it coming. And lo and
That,
behold,
that is
yeah,
that is where the famous stormtroopers tactics were developed.
exactly. I mean, proof is in the pudding when it came to the collapse of France. But this potential war with Germany, they thought it probably would escalate somewhere like in the French West Indies. And that technically is still, it's definitely in the American zone of interest, being in the Caribbean and all. So, they planned for strategies like a naval blockade of Germany, for greater naval development, troop movements to defend, their territories, to prevent the Germans from getting a foothold in the Caribbean, let alone if they had the ambition to land in America. That would be pretty wild. I mean, it's like man in the high castle scenario, I guess. But yeah, that was kind of their idea. It was very defensive. There was also War Plan Gray, which was one that kind of changed over time.